Good morning. Good caffeinated morning. Good awesome breakfast morning. I am Joanna Ear, and I have the privilege of being the director of HRC Foundation's Welcoming Schools program. Our team works with educators across the country to make elementary schools more inclusive and affirming for LGBTQ youth. Before this job, I was a high school teacher and an administrator for almost 20 years, and so I am thrilled to be in a room filled with adults committed to working with youth to create safe and inclusive schools. Thank you for the work you're already doing to make schools welcoming for all of our students. HRC's Welcoming Schools is entering our 10th year, and this year, we have expanded our program by training a group of Welcoming Schools certified facilitators so that we have trainers available across the nation to bring the Welcoming Schools approach to any school that asks for help. We also continue to work with schools and school districts who earn the HRC Welcoming Schools Seal of Excellence, including Garden Oaks Elementary in Houston, Texas. Yes, Texas. Welcoming Schools focuses on 4 areas: embracing family diversity, creating LGBTQ inclusive schools, addressing bias-based bullying, and supporting transgender and gender-expansive youth. In our work, we give teachers the tools they need to make sure that every family is recognized and valued. Research shows that students perform better academically and socially when there is a positive relationship between families and schools. And while LGBTQ couples may be able to get married, we are still often met with scrutiny when we show up at a PTA meeting. It's an honor to be part of changing this landscape. And while some people may deny it, young children already know LGBTQ people. Of course they do. Sometimes they're their parents, or their cousins, or their brothers and sisters, or sometimes they are them. Elementary school students can and should have age-appropriate conversations about adults on LGBTQ topics. I will be offering a workshop today that focuses specifically on this subject. When I work with teachers, I often ask them, how many of you were bullied or participated in or witnessed bullying when you were in school? Usually everyone's hand goes up. I ask them to keep their hands up if an adult effectively intervened in the bullying behavior. Unfortunately, most of their hands come down. In other words, many of today's teachers, including myself when I was in the classroom, did not have teachers themselves that modeled how to effectively address bias-based bullying. We work with teachers at Welcoming Schools to help staff to learn effective interventions to both stop and prevent bullying behavior. Some of the most vulnerable students in our schools are transgender and gender-expansive students, in particular transgender students of color. Not only do these young people face challenges simply being understood and accepted by their peers and their teachers, but they are now fodder for fear-mongering politicians. In fact, there's a bill on the brink of becoming law that would ban transgender students in South Dakota from using the appropriate bathrooms and locker rooms at school. I pictured you all doing that. Boo. Yes. We know there is a real backlash and misinformation about what it means to be trans. That's why it is so important to hear from Jazz and other transgender and gender-expansive youth. In fact, over the last 2 years, the number of calls from principals looking for help in supporting transitioning students has skyrocketed, representing more than half of the calls that we receive at Welcoming Schools. Last night, Jazz told the story of a small town in Wisconsin called Mount Horeb, where Welcoming Schools recently had the chance to help the community support a brave little 6-year-old first grader who was transitioning. The school's plan, in working with the family, included a reading of the book, I Am Jazz, about transgender team and HRC Youth Ambassador Jazz Jennings. They were doing everything that we believe a welcoming school should do. But then a hate group got wind of their plans, and under pressure, the school canceled the reading. Amy Lyle, a parent with a child at the same school, had learned that the school was going to read the book and was so proud of the school for making this decision. And as such, she was disheartened to hear of the cancellation. And she took action. Amy worked with other community members and HRC's Welcoming Schools to host a reading at the local library. And what was supposed to be a small community event became something that caught the nation's attention. I was honored to be at that reading. In fact, in my 20 years of working in K-12 education, I'd never seen anything like what happened in that small community. Please help me to welcome to the stage Amy Lyle and Jessica Herthel to continue the telling of this very important story.
Thank you, Joanna, and everyone for the warm welcome. I'm literally shaking in my booties. Okay. When I decided to organize the reading of I Am Jazz, I never imagined I would wind up on this stage speaking with you this weekend. But I knew that when the Liberty Council, yes, that Liberty Council of Kim Davis fame, targeted my community and my children's school, we had to stand up. We had to show the extremists that they couldn't bully us. Yeah. More importantly, I wanted to show them that Mount Horeb wasn't the kind of place where fear and hate win. We are a small town of just about 7,000 people who are very proud of our community. Just the other week, we had our winter Scandinavian festival, known for its village spelling bee and frozen turkey bowling competition. It's real. My dad won it a few years ago, actually. It's a one-of-a-kind small town and the kind of place where we show up for each other. I wanted my community to show up for this transgender student and her family, and for each other. I wanted Mount Horeb to show this family that we are the kind of people that support our children, including this child, no matter how they identify or express themselves. And despite that community pride, I also have to admit, I never imagined the kind of response we got. Originally, I reserved a small room in our community library and thought we might bring some milk and cookies. I literally thought I would be reading to my children and like some neighbor children, and it wouldn't matter because we would be showing this family what we believed. But then HRC and others reached out, and then the media started calling, and more people contacted us wanting to help. So we asked the library if we could move the reading because, well, we might need some more room, and boy, did we. Nearly 600 people joined us at the library that night. Every single one of them was there to learn more and to show their support for this brave young person in our community. I'll never forget that night. And I'll never forget the feeling of pride after the reading when I watched a line of more than 40 families get their signed copy of I Am Jazz, and to see the parents pledging to take the books home and read them to their children again and again. Some of the kids plopped right down there on that library floor and insisted that their parent read their book right then. My community inspired me so much that night, and all of you here this weekend inspire me with the amazing work that you're doing in your schools and in your communities to support LGBTQ kids. And I am so inspired by this wonderful woman right beside me who co-authored I Am Jazz and who HRC flew out to join us on that special night. Jessica.
Thank you, Amy. From one mother to another, I am truly inspired by you and the love you share for all children. You know, I can't talk about this book at a training or a school or a conference without someone saying to me, Jessica, how did you, a straight parent of 3 ostensibly straight kids, end up co-authoring a book about a transgender child? And the short answer is, it was totally selfish. I didn't want my kids to be jerks when they grew up. The longer answer is that this book sprang from a place of pure love. I had met Jeanette, Jazz's amazing mom, at a community committee working to keep schools safe for all students. Jeanette and I hit it off, and I asked her one day if she thought a 4-year-old was sophisticated enough to understand what transgender meant. And then I didn't even wait for the answer. I decided to go home and try it, because what good are children if not little science experiments? So I gathered my kids around the computer and I pulled up a YouTube video, and my kids were 4, 5, and 7 at the time. I brought my girls together and I showed them one of Jazz's videos. And when the video was over, I said, would you like to meet that little girl? And they nodded enthusiastically, because anyone who's on YouTube is, by definition, a very big deal in my house. And I said, but there's a catch. There's something very special about this little girl. She was born with the shape of a boy. How unusual is that? But remember what your father and I have always told you. We don't judge anyone based on their shape or their size or their color. We get to know the person inside. Do you think you could do that? And they nodded again, and I said, okay, well, we'll find out. So we got the girls together, and we went out for ice cream. And the girls had the best time. Jazz was wonderful with them, and they laughed and they giggled. And on the ride home, my husband and I heard them in the back seat saying, oh, she's so cool, she's so beautiful, I love her hair, I love her clothes. And so I leaned over to my husband and I said, they get it, or at least they get enough of it, that the transgender thing wasn't a big deal. So I called Jeanette in the morning. I was so excited to share the results of my scientific experiment. And I said, it was so easy. It was a total non-event. Why do parents make this so complicated? Why isn't there a book out there for someone like me who wants to have this conversation with her kids but doesn't know where to start? Jeanette said, we've always wanted to write a book, but we don't know how. And I said, I don't know how, but let's find out. And so to go from that conversation back in my living room in Florida in February of 2013 to standing in front of 600 community members in Mount Horeb in December of 2015, to now having HRC back the book in national readings, well, it goes without saying that being a part of this project has been one of the great privileges of my life. Mount Horeb has shown that this book can create positive and immediate change. And now I'd like to bring Joanna back to tell you how you can be a part of that change.
So shortly after that amazing experience in Mount Horeb, teachers, librarians, and other advocates wanted to host their own readings. So we set to work and we created an organizing kit that was made available to dozens of teachers, librarians, and advocates that we contacted to host their own school and community readings. In January, thousands of young people in Washington State, in Missouri, in DC, yes, here in Texas, were treated to readings of I Am Jazz in their own communities. But we can't stop there, because none of you have had the chance to host your own readings. We need to give you the opportunity to participate in these readings. We want to recreate that night at Mount Horeb in communities and schools all across this nation. And the timing is so crucial, because there are extremists out there targeting our young people. They're mobilizing school boards and state legislators, not only in South Dakota, but in more than 20 states across this country where hateful bills have been introduced already this year. These young people need you. These young people need us. So, on Thursday, April 28th, we are issuing a bold call to action, and we are partnering with the National Education Association, woohoo, and the National Coalition Against Censorship to host I Am Jazz readings nationwide. Teachers, parents, yes. Teachers, parents, and other allies all across the nation, and Time to Thrive participants, will be reading this incredible book to demonstrate their support of transgender youth and to build more inclusive, welcoming schools and communities. Imagine if every single one of us in this room signed up to host our own reading. Imagine what that could mean for transgender people in our lives. Whether you choose to organize a reading in your classroom, in a community library, in a local bookstore, even in your own living room, you could literally change the life of young people who deeply need to know that they are welcomed and loved, even as some elected officials call them twisted. So let's all do this right now. Like, right now. I would love it if you would take out your cell phones, and if you can, text the word jazz to 30644, and we will respond with a link to a form to sign up now to host a reading. Or if you're not a texter, visit hrc.org/readjazz to go directly to the form. So go ahead, this is your moment to act. Get out those phones, laptops, whatever you have, text jazz to 30644 or visit hrc.org/readjazz, and I will give you a moment right now to actually do that. I heard the first, I hope I start hearing dings all over. Oh, there they are. That's right, you have your phones on mute, right? You got it. Great, thank you all so much. For anybody who had tech problems, you can sign up old school, like on paper, at the HRC Welcoming Schools booth in the exhibit hall. We will be following up with more details about that day in the coming weeks. And your commitment here today already means so much. You will literally be changing hearts, minds, and lives with these readings. But before I go, I want to bring up to the stage someone to whom we all owe a great deal of gratitude. These events would certainly not have happened without these two special women behind me, but had it not been for one amazing and very brave young woman who had the courage to speak her truth well before many of us had a basic understanding of transgender people, we would be so far behind where we are today. Now, we're not going to ask her to give another speech, as she gave an incredible talk last night, but will you please join me in a sincere thank you to our hero, Jazz Jennings.
Wow, I want to say thank you so much to you all. For everyone who signed up and pledged to read this book in their classrooms, in their libraries, in their homes, I can't tell you what it means to me or what it means to all the kids out there who are struggling to find a way to explain who they are or to understand another young person's journey in living their truth. You are all amazing. Thank you.